Hi everyone, this is Cynthia, your voice coach. I help you develop a powerful voice so that when you speak and whenever, wherever you speak, you will be seen as the expert in the room. Sounds good? So in these 3 days crash course, you are going to learn how to have a confident and hi, Ven, thank you for joining me. Finally, now I can see. Hi, Sudha. So we are restarting this because one is, I think something's wrong with the Facebook. I cannot see just now who is joining. So I'm glad that now I can see who is joining me. So if you're joining me, type into the chat, say hi, and say where you are from so that I know you are here. And okay, so I see more people joining. Okay, very good. So type into the chat so that I know you're there, and also we will make the session more interactive. Hi, Onwa. And I think just now there is either something wrong with Facebook or something's wrong with the network. So I cannot see who's joining. I can only see the number of people online. So now I'm glad to see all of you joining. Type into the chat to let me know where you're from. And so for today, so if you're just joining, I am going to restart. So this is Cynthia, your voice coach. I help you develop a powerful voice so that whenever, wherever you speak, you will be seen as the expert in the room. In this 3 days crash course, we are going to cover the following 3 things. Okay. Thank you, Sudha. Yes, I can see you now. So just now, you were probably online, but I cannot see anyone. And okay, hi, Onwa. So in these 3 days, you are going to, if this is for the 3-day crash course, this is for you if you, number one, whenever you speak in front of the group, your voice will be trembling. And the more trembling in your voice, the more nervous you'll get. And you don't want the audience to know that your voice is trembling. And you don't want the audience to know that you're nervous. So you quickly rush through your presentations. And in the end, you didn't make any impact. What's even worse is that you start to avoid any presentations because you don't want people to know that your voice will be trembling. They know for sure 100% that their voice will be trembling. Hi, Diala. Thank you for joining me. And you know that if you want to be promoted, if you want to grow your business, you have to present in front of groups. You have to be seen, and you have to be seen as competent and confident. So being able to speak in front of the group is crucial for your career or your business growth. If you agree, type into the chat saying that agree. Because I have seen so many of my students, their career, their business was held off because they were not able to speak in front of the group. And because they were trying to avoid all kinds of ways to speak in front of the group. If that's you, type into the chat. The first step, if you want to improve, is to acknowledge where you are. And the second thing that this is for you, if you find that in meetings, whenever you express your ideas, your insights, after you speak, no one has any reaction. And you wonder, did they hear me? Did my message get across clearly? And you are not sure that how it landed on people. A few minutes later, someone else said something, and they are saying the exact same thing as you did, but they got agreement, they got cheers, they got even claps, and you started to wonder, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? And the good news is there's nothing wrong with you. There is only that your voice and what we're going to talk about today, which is your mindset, need to be upgraded. That's all. And the third group of people, the third thing, which is that if you speak, you have a voice that is monotonous. This crash course will also help you to see that what are the ways you can improve. So these are the 3 things that the crash course is for you. So if this is for you, if you have one of the situations that I just talked about, put into the chat saying that, yes, this is for me. So I don't see anyone else is typing. And okay, thank you, Suda. I think I just need to scroll to see the comment. So today we're going to talk about the most overlooked area in voice development. And it is not directly related to voice. It is actually mindset. So why mindset is so important that I put it into day 1? Because I have seen many of my students, many of my clients, after they have developed a powerful voice, their voice was powerful, but whenever it comes to presentations, they still try to avoid it. Whenever it comes to speaking up in meetings, they are still holding back. And as we discuss more, I realize it is some of the mental blocks that are holding them back. So what are some of the most common mental blocks that I have seen in my students and clients? So today, we are going to highlight 2 of them. These are the 2 most common mental blocks that are holding people back. And you may not even realize that this is holding you back. So today is your day that you will find the awareness. The first mental block. As we talk, if you find that something's resonated with you, just type into the chat and say that, yes, that's me. And also that because we are only going to talk about 2 most common mental blocks. If you have other mental blocks, and you can also type into the chat. If we have time, we will also address it. The first most common mental block is the fear of being visible. The fear of being visible. So you think about it, if you don't want to be seen, if you don't feel comfortable to be seen, of course that you're not going to raise your hand when it's time to speak up. Of course that you're not going to raise your hand to volunteer to do the presentation. So some of my clients, if they can have other people do the presentation, they would always choose to let other people do the presentation. So of course that in that case, you're not visible. When you're not visible, you will not be promoted. You will not be able to grow your business. So that's the first fear, the fear of being visible. Do you have that fear? Type into the chat and let me know. Especially for a lot of introverts. I am an introvert. I'm a happy introvert, and that happened to me as well. So I was having the fear of being visible, because being visible to me was kind of was like being in danger. And in order to crush this fear, in order to remove this fear, you have to explore where this fear comes from. And so for me, my dad is very strict. So he was also very critical, and he would criticize everything that we do. So I'm the second daughter of 3 daughters. And every one of us was criticized for everything that we do. And so I realized that the best way for me to survive when I was young, it was unconscious. And you see, for kids, in order to survive in a family, those were all unconscious survival strategies that we have kind of unconsciously learned. So for me, I realized that in order not to be criticized, I have to keep quiet. And so that was my first realization when I was young. And later on, I realized that just keeping quiet was not enough, because sometimes, even if I was not speaking anything, as long as I am sitting not far from my dad, he would also find something to criticize, even without me saying a word. So then I developed my second survival strategy, which was to stay invisible. To stay invisible. because in that case, I will not be criticized. I will not also have the possibility to be beaten. So in fact, out of these 3 kids in my family, I was the one who was beaten the least because I was invisible. And even when I was in college, this has become a habit for me, and until before I start to realize this pattern. So when I was in college and after the college, during this spring and summer breaks, when I went home, and my younger sister, she said, wow, if you didn't come out for lunch or dinner, we didn't even know you're home. And at that moment, it dawned on me that, oh my God, I am still having this habit of being invisible in me, even when I was much older, even when there was no danger. So I want to hear from you that, do you have this fear of being visible? Because this fear of being visible can be reflected in so many different ways. If you have this fear, the first step, now that you have the awareness, the second step we're going to do is to explore where this fear came from, where this fear came from. So I'd like to hear from all of you. Type into the chat so that we are having a real discussion, and also you will benefit the most if you're typing in so that we can see what the real pattern, the real problem is. So for Sudar said, when people ignore me in meetings, I get nervous and my speech loses its clarity. Yes, I speak beating around the bush. Yes, so these are also the problems we were talking about just now. So thank you for sharing. And let's hear from the rest. So if you have this fear we were talking about, if you have it, then we will address it. So Diala, thank you for sharing. It's agree with the fear as you described, mental block, unable to put thoughts together and deliver them clearly, verbally and spontaneously. Okay, thank you. And also, yes, so thank you for joining me. Hi, Gina-Lin, thank you for joining us. And we were talking about the first mental block, which is the first, and actually, it's the biggest fear. And especially for introverts, this is the fear that we all have. So the fear of being visible. Who has the fear of being visible? Raise your hand, type into the chat. And we're not having a pity party. We are having the first step, which is acknowledge the fear. If you don't acknowledge the fear, then you will never be able to overcome them. It's just like in a dark room, in order to see where the trash is, we have to shed light on the trash first, right? So that's the first fear, and we're talking about once you acknowledge the fear, 2 is you want to explore where this fear came from. So like what I have described, that fear came from the way I was raised, the way that I was put into this family, having this father. Even today, till today, my dad is still my biggest lesson for this life to learn. So the older he gets, the more difficult to deal with he gets, and the more difficult to be dealt with for my father. So it is still a lesson for me to learn. And of course that I love my dad, and I see that as a lesson for me to learn. It's just that being visible for me is much more comfortable now. But I have to deal with other areas of my dad. So thank you for Gina-Lin and Suda. Thank you. So you're also having the fear of being visible. Now, the fear of being visible can be really reflected in many areas. So once you realize that, today your homework or your fun work, this is actually fun to explore the young you, how you were surviving in your family. And also you can start, if you have kids, start to observe your kid or your kids, how they are surviving. What is their survival strategy? Because we have to live in a family to learn all the lessons that we're supposed to learn. So that's the fear of being visible. And once you have the awareness, once you realize the source of this fear, and then you are going to tackle it. So today, we are going to give you one step on how to tackle that. So this is the next question you want to ask yourself, which is, if you are being put in a situation where you are visible, so now everyone sees you, and when you speak, when you present, everyone can see you. Now you are having a very high visibility. What's the worst that can happen? When you have that visibility, what's the worst that can happen? So, for example, for my case, if I were to be visible, the worst that could happen was I would get criticized. No one now would beat me up. And so when I was young, that's the possibility that I would get beaten up. But now, as an adult, I would not get beaten up. Plus, I am learning kickboxing. So it's not that fear will come true. So no one would beat me up. The worst that can happen would that I would get criticized. So I would get criticized. So if I was to get criticized, so what? Everyone would be getting criticized. Everyone would be getting judged, which will be the second biggest fear, the fear of judgment. The fear of judgment. So we're going to talk about that one as well. So that's the 3 steps we're talking about how to start to manage this fear. One is the awareness. You are aware of this fear. Number 2 is that you will have this source, which is you are going to think about where this fear came from. And then the third one would be that what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen would be getting criticized or getting laughed at. My boss will give me an immediate feedback. Okay. So if your boss would give you feedback, then what would be happening? What's the worst could happen to that? So you are going to keep on asking yourself, what's the worst that could happen step by step? So if I'm going to be criticized, what's the worst that could happen? So then people will just criticize me, and I will just feel very bad. And what's the worst that could happen to me feeling very bad? So then I would feel disencouraged. And what's the worst could happen to feel discouraged? Nothing, right? Nothing. I would just feel discouraged. So you see, that's how we step by step to help you find the source of that fear. And also because, you know, most of the times we are very unconscious of what's running in the mind. Because actually at the back of the mind, we're having this unconscious fear of the worst scenario. So now we are putting the worst scenario into the light. So that's the 3 steps to help you tackle that fear. Okay. So thank you for sharing. And so now let's come to the second fear, because that's also another thing that also a kind of a worst scenario that would happen, which is the fear of judgment. The fear of judgment. And once you have the awareness of the fear of judgment, and then you are going to also think about where is this fear coming from. So of course for me it's because I was judged all the time. And again, I love my dad, but just to give you a background of how this fear came about, because my dad is, the moment he woke up, he would be criticizing everything. So for example, oh, this cup, you should not be putting it here. This one is not in place. The way you dress is not good. It's not good for going to school. And also, you know, for that reason, that when I was young, all 3 of us, 3 girls, I just told you that in my family, all of us were having the short hair, because my dad said that would take too much time to prepare for school in the morning. So I was having short hair until the day I went to college. They see that I was criticized all the time. So that's where it came from. So that's why before I started to work on this area, I was having this fear of being judged. So how would people think of me? If I say something, what would they say? And if I said something wrong, that what would they, or I think if I said something wrong, what would they think of me? So those are all fear of judgment. If you are standing in front of the group and giving a presentation, you might be thinking, oh, what would they think of me if I say something wrong? What would they think of me if I forget something? What would they think of me if I said something and they have no response? Or in meetings, you would have the fear of judgment. Oh, if I say something, if it's not something that makes a big impact, what would they think of me? So what other fear of judgment do you have? Type into the chat and let us see that what else are you afraid of in terms of fear of judgment. Thank you, Gina Lee. She said, I experienced the same. Thank you. So once you have that, again, you will go to the third step, which is what's the worst that could happen? If you have this fear of judgment, if they judge you, if they say, oh, okay, Cynthia, you are not competent, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen would be that if I'm working for a company, they will say that, oh, you're not competent, then we're not going to promote you. And then if they're not going to promote me, what's the worst that could happen? Then I will stay in the same position, I will get stuck. Or I would get fired. So if I get fired, what's the worst that could happen? Then the worst could happen is I would have no job, I would have no money, no income, then I would be begging on the street. So that's the worst that could happen. But you see that once you have those worst scenarios, then you're going to ask yourself, has it ever happened? Has it ever happened that I am begging on the street? Of course not. So you see that how interesting our mind is, that it is imagining all these worst scenarios that would never happen. So that's the 3 steps to help you manage the fear. And at the end, you also want to ask yourself, has it ever happened? If it has never happened, then there's nothing to worry about. If it has happened, if I had begged on the street, then what's the worst? Then what? Then were you able to manage it? Yes, I was able to manage it. I was able to get out of the begging on the street. So that's the 2 different questions you ask yourself, which is, has it ever happened? No, it has never happened. Then you don't need to worry about it. Or, yes, it has happened. Then did you manage it? Yes, you were able to manage it. You were able to get out of it. So that's the 2 biggest fears. If it resonates with you, let me know. Hi, Lark. Thank you for joining us. We are just finishing. You can watch the replay. So the 2 biggest fears that are standing in your way to being speaking with a confident and powerful voice, that are standing in your way to being heard, that are standing in your way to accepting the presentation opportunities, that are also standing in your way to being promoted, to growing your business. So what are the 2 biggest fears? The fear of being visible and the fear of being judged. So following this replay, you will receive the workbook. In the workbook, these are the steps that we talked about. And I would really like you to do the work today, because just listening is not going to help you grow. It is practicing that will help you grow. So once you receive this workbook, even if you didn't receive the workbook yet, because it will take some time for Ellen, my assistant, to upload the workbook. But even without the workbook, you have just listened to this lesson and you know what are the 3 steps are, right? You know what the 3 steps are, and you know how to manage the fear. So I'd like to have you start to do the work. And tomorrow, we are going to talk about the why your voice trembles and how you can manage that. So that's for tomorrow. But for today, it is to face your fear first. And also, if there are other fears coming up, I'd like to hear from you. Share in the video comment, even though the live streaming is over, but the video will still be in the group. So share in the video comment so that I will be able to check in to see that what the other fears that you may have. So that's for today, the 2 biggest fears. And also that for these are the 2 biggest fears. And we will also be having a masterclass coming up. So the masterclass this time is we are going to dive deep, which will be a 6-month masterclass. The 6-month masterclass is also in our Voice Mastery Academy. So the Voice Mastery Academy is officially opened. And in this Voice Mastery Academy, we have different classes, different courses. So one, of course, is to do one-on-one with me. So I have the students who are doing one-on-one with me. And we also have this 6-month group class. So this is going to be, we're going to work on the same pace. And this is the group class that I'm going to launch. So this group class will be launching at the end of the month, 25th of June. Let me see the date. So it's 25th of June that we're going to officially launch. And not sure if you have talked with me. If you have talked with me, that you know, working with me one-on-one, working with me one-on-one is $8,000 US for 6 months. And if you want to join this group class, the group class is $4,000 US. And for the group class, because it's a group, and I also want to ensure the result for every student in the class. So we don't accept everyone to be in the class. So I only accept those who are ready and who are committed to join the class, so that I can really help you create the result. And so if you have always wanted to work with me, and if you know that I am the coach for you, and if you are ready to work with a group of also committed and hardworking classmates, then you can go to this link to apply. And the link is bit.ly. So I will be posting it here. bit.ly Voice Academy application. So it's bit.ly Voice Academy application. So if you want to join this group class and to work with me step by step to help you not only just crush the mental fears, but also to learn the step-by-step working on your voice, to develop a voice that's powerful, confident, even if you're nervous, and develop the voice that will be heard at any time that you speak. So that's the link that you go and apply, and I'll review the application. If I feel that you would be a good fit for the class, then we will schedule a call to discuss how you are going to join this class and how you are going to be supported. So in this masterclass, we also have 2 levels. So if you join 6 months, it is $4,000 US. And if you join we also have 3 months and 3 months, level 1 and level 2, you can also join by levels. So each level 1 is 2,500. Level 2 is also 2,500. So you can also do it in that way. So join level by level. So in this masterclass, every 2 months, we will be having a milestone for you to meet. So once you hit that milestone, you will start to see the small changes in your voice. So for example, this afternoon, I will be doing a case study with a client. She started to see the changes in her voice once she hit the first milestone. And now she is into the 3.5 months. She already started to see the change in her voice. So be the same, be it join one-to-one or join the group. So every milestone that you hit, and these are milestones, they are also built on each other. They are really a step-by-step process. And once you hit the milestones, you will be able to see the small changes in your voice, and you will start to feel more confident. And so that's the group program that we're going to launch on 25th of June. So if you have any questions about this masterclass, group masterclass, you can type into the chat and let me know. At the same time, I'll also answer some of the questions that you have. So Sudha asked, is stage fear kind of a phobia? So phobia is the highest level of stage fright. Phobia, or we can also call that the stage phobia. Stage phobia is you almost couldn't function. I had a client, you may have seen his testimonials. He's a doctor, medical doctor. He's a consultant, medical consultant. He used to work in the UK, and then he was working in Singapore. So he had stage phobia. What's stage phobia like? Stage phobia is like you couldn't even hear the word present or presentation. Even just by hearing these two words, you already get kind of very nervous, and your body was tensed up, and you probably couldn't even function. So he really had stage phobia, and he couldn't even hear the word present or presentation. And also before his presentation, he wouldn't be able to focus. He was trying to prepare, but he couldn't focus. And his body just in a panic mode. So you see that if you have that kind of stage phobia, you couldn't function. And he was very good at his job, but because he was not able to present, he had this stage phobia, he was not able to be promoted. And he was stuck in his career. So that's where we were working on the stage phobia. So over time, over about 6 months, he was able to manage that fear, manage that phobia. And before we finished working together, he already done 4 presentations. And at the end of the 4th presentation, he was asking his boss, when the next presentation is. So you see that he was able to go from a stage phobia to anticipating his next presentation. So you can really overcome that with the proper guidance, with the proper practice. So that's the highest level of nervousness, stage fear, phobia. And then we have different levels. And at the bottom of the nervousness is the right amount and positive amount of stage fear or nervousness, because those positive level of nervousness will help you keep alert, will help you be on your toes, will help you perform well. So see, that doesn't mean that you will never have any nervousness. You will still have nervousness. It's just that it became positive. It became something that will help you instead of holding you back. So that's to answer your question, and I hope that answered your question. Hi, Robbie. Thank you for joining us, and we are finishing. So for those of you who joined late, you can watch the recording and also really do the work. So tomorrow we're going to talk about why your voice trembles and how you can improve that. So thank you everyone for joining me and for participating. And remember to do the work that we talked about and write into the comment, come back to this video and write into the comment so that I will be coming back and check how you're doing, what other fears that you're sharing. And if you also want to join us in the Voice Academy, Voice Mastery Academy, you can fill out the application form. So that's all for today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone. So let me let me end this.